Welcome. My name is Julia Lozier. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Assistant Director of Events for Enrollment Management here at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. As you can see from my Zoom name, I'm also a proud UMass Amherst alum from the class of 2012. I love working for these events with parents because both of my parents were also UMass Amherst alums. They actually met in the Baker Residence Hall where they were both RAs. So it's always a pleasure for me to do events where I get to connect with current or prospective UMass Amherst parents and sort of feel like I'm continuing the family legacy here at UMass, and that might be you as well. So again, wherever you're coming from, whether you have interacted with UMass a lot or perhaps are an alum yourself or you're sort of new to learning about our university, we're really excited that you're here. Today we're going to be hosting our Day in the Life at UMass Amherst Parents Edition. We're going to get to hear from current UMass students about what a sample day in the life at UMass might look like. So before we do launch into the official presentation, I just wanted to give you a few housekeeping items. First of all, you will be able to use the Q&A feature of the webinar. So if you look towards your Zoom controls, which could be at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your device and what edition of Zoom you're using, you should see two speech bubbles, and that's our Q&A feature. So you're welcome to ask questions in that feature at any time throughout the presentation today. We will not be able to answer all of the questions, but we will be asking several of them aloud for our current students to answer. And then before the end of the slideshow, I will also make sure to give you some contact information. So if we're not able to answer your question today, you can absolutely reach out to us and make sure that you get that information. This is absolutely not your only opportunity to ask questions, but we will be able to spend some time answering your questions today. So please feel free to send those in. We might answer them directly in the chat. We might save them for the live Q&A at the end. Or we may follow up, by answering an email or something after the presentation. I also wanted to let you know that this is being recorded. And I'm sort of saying out loud now that I believe that I was supposed to record it as well. And I'm not sure that I did that, but it looks like it's being recorded. Great. Perfect. Just want to make sure that I was holding up my end of the bargain there. So it is being recorded by my colleague, Kate. Thank you, Kate. And it's going to be posted to our website. So if you want to watch this again in the future or share it with friends or family who aren't able to join us live today, you'll definitely have the chance to do that. One other thing I want to mention is that although I'm here in my office in the Whitmore Administration Building, what you can see behind me is the ILC, or the Integrated Learning Center. That's a background showing one of our learning spaces here on campus. The ILC was built a little bit after my time at UMass, but it's a really great learning space. And fun fact, almost all, not all, but almost all UMass students will have a class in the ILC at some point or the other because it has so many great collaborative classroom spaces and different departments that utilize that space, and it's right in the center of campus. So you can see behind me here the ILC lobby, some shared study space, and there's a little cafe there as well. So just a little shout out to the ILC. And with that, I'm going to pause because I want to say congratulations to everybody. If you're attending this webinar today, you have had your student accepted to college. And that is a huge deal. If you take a moment to think back and reflect on when this journey started for you and your family, you've come a really long way, all the way to the point of having options. Your student is going to college. It's so exciting. And I just think it's really nice to soak that in for a minute before we give you information, just to pause and say, wow, my student was accepted to college. This is a big deal. And we know the blood, sweat, and tears go into this. So congratulations, very deeply mean that on having a student accepted to college, and specifically to the great UMass Amherst. So I think that covers my housekeeping and my congratulations. So with that, I want to give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. As I said, my name is Julia Lozier. You've heard from me. We also have some great current students that are joining us, so they're going to wave hello to you now. First of all, we are joined by Emily. We also have James and Bree. So You'll be hearing more from them later. They're going to be presenting the Day in the Life Parents Edition today. And then behind the scenes, we have Emily C. and MP. So you'll see their names popping up in the chat, either sharing links. So do keep an eye on the chat. MP is going to share links to websites that sort of correspond to some of the content we're talking about today. So you can open those pages and take a look at them more in depth after the presentation. I definitely recommend that. She just introduced herself in the chat. Thanks, MP. And then Emily C will be helping behind the scenes answering your questions. So awesome talent on the screen today. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. So as I mentioned, Emily, G, James, and Bree are going to walk us through a day in the life of a UMass Amherst student. There are a lot of different kinds of days that could happen at UMass. So this is just sort of a sample. You'll get to hear a little bit about different things that students have the chance to explore and hear a bit from Emily, James, and Bree about their own experiences as UMass students. And then, as I mentioned, we'll save some time for a formal Q&A at the end. And then finally, I will make sure to share some information on next steps. So what you might want to keep in mind over the next couple months as you think about making that choice for your student and what their next step is going to be. And then we'll also talk about ways that you can stay in touch, follow us on social media, join a Facebook group for admitted students as well as for parents, and really, again, continue to get all that information that you need as you and your family take this important next step in life. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to James, who is going to share a little bit more about himself, and then we'll jump right into that Day in the Life at UMass Amherst presentation. So everyone sit back and enjoy. And once again, thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is James. I'm a senior here at UMass, and I'm double majoring in environmental science and biology. And I'm also pursuing a certificate program in marine and coastal sciences. So kind of put all that together, I'm really interested in marine ecosystems, fisheries, those sorts of things. And I do work in a lab that kind of goes along those lines. We study this little species of fish native to Massachusetts and kind of see how they're responding to habitat change. I'm also doing my thesis project in that lab, so I am a member of the Honors College, which we'll get into a little more. I see there's already tons of questions about it, so we'll definitely talk about that. But when I'm not doing anything academic, I like to be outside as much as possible. So I'm a member of the Outing Club here at UMass. That's one of the oldest and largest clubs on campus. We do all sorts of things from hiking, climbing, caving, all that sort of fun stuff. So I'm really passionate about that club. And I'm also a member of the American Fisheries Society and the Surf Club here on campus. So again, really love that kind of outdoors, water-related stuff. That's a little bit about me. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Emily next.
Hey guys, my name's Emily. I'm a sophomore here at UMass Amherst. I'm double majoring in education and Spanish, and then I'm also pursuing a TESOL certificate, so teaching English as a second language. Besides being a tour guide on campus and talking to prospective students and parents like you guys, I am a volunteer in the Amherst Public Schools, so it's a really big switch up going from college kids all day to then 6-year-olds, but I think it's awesome. I love it. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this information session with you guys, and I'll pass it over to Bree.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna. Feel free to call me Bree. I'm a junior double major with marketing and sport management, as well as a minor in African American studies. So all the academics in one. From Bridgewater, Mass. I have one of the best jobs on campus of being a tour guide. I love giving tours and talking to families. But my other job that I have on campus is being an RA, or what we call a resident assistant. So I live in the dorms and I help all of the people in my community get accustomed to living in that community. I'm in Orchard Hill, up on that big old hill. Yes, I walk up it sometimes. Sometimes I take the bus. But yeah, we have like different events going on. We had like a paint night, a pizza party the other day, things like that. Aside from that, I'm also the president of Women in Sport Management Club here on UMass. So super passionate about creating opportunities for women in the sport industry and just having some of those important conversations. My freshman year, I was a live video production assistant. I was terrible at it, but it was a great way to get introduced into sports. So I was like filming the football games, filming the hockey games, working the audios, things like that. And then this past summer, I had an internship at Excel Sport Management, which I found through UMass, which I got to work with NBA players and MLB players. I didn't meet like LeBron or anything, but I had a really fun time just working with their off-court activities. But that's enough about me. I'll pass it off to Emily to get us started.
Yeah, so right now I'm just going to give you a couple of quick snapshots about UMass. So we're actually top 26 public universities, which is actually absolutely amazing. We're going to try and keep climbing that ladder to continue moving upwards. We're located in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is actually voted one of the best college towns in America. And that's because Amherst is really just geared towards college kids with its downtown, with all of the mountains and hiking trails that James likes to utilize. And then with also just kind of like all the stuff that we have around Amherst. It's absolutely amazing. You guys all have to go to Antonio's Pizza when you come. It's a staple of downtown Amherst. Every student eventually will get pizza at Antonio's, so I definitely recommend. We also have over 100 undergraduate degree programs that students can choose from. The little plus we'll talk about later in the academics, but you can actually kind of add on. You can add majors, minors, certificates. You can build your own programs. So we also have more than 400 registered student organizations, aka clubs on campus. So you're definitely going to be able to, the students are definitely going to be able to find something they're interested in and be able to meet people who have similar interests and hobbies as them. We also have #1 campus dining, which I'll be talking about today, which is absolutely incredible. I can't say enough about it. So I'm actually not going to go into it too much right now because I know I'm going to talk forever about it later on. And then we're also among the top 30 campuses in the country for LGBTQIA students. So we actually have our LGBTQIA Stonewall Center right actually next to my dorm building in Crampton. And they always have tons of fun events going on and everything like that. So I'm really excited about that. If we move on to the next slide, I can talk a little bit about our community here. So UMass is a large community made up of people from tons of different backgrounds. So we have 31% students of color. We have 21% of first-gen students, so they're first in the family to go to college. 22% of our students are Pell Grant recipients. And then we have a population of 22,745 undergraduate students, with 1,562 of them being international undergraduates. And then we have undergraduate students coming from 49 states. Don't ask me what that one state is. I'm not exactly sure, but I still think it's really cool that we have almost all 50 states coming to UMass. I thought it was Alaska until I met someone in my tutoring in schools class, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm from blah, 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 Alaska. And I was like, okay, well now I'm really lost. So, but 49 states is still amazing. And now I'll pass it off to Bree so that she can tell you guys a little bit about residential life.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. So getting into living in the residential halls, I know this is like so exciting for me. I remember I was like, wow, this is like my first experience, like not living with my annoying siblings. But yeah, it was exciting. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about an overview and give you guys a spiel of what your student may be, what type of environment they may be living in. So these are just some of the dorms. As you can see, mine's a little blurred out right now, but in the pictures, you can decorate it your own way. You make it your own space, make it your own home. I think some of these are like from North Apartments at the bottom. That's the hall. We have like Northeast pictured in here, Van Meter, and actually some of our tour guides, I believe this is their rooms as well. So we got a little feature in there as well. But yeah, this is just like what your residential hall, you might be coming here after class. Here's like a little video of it as well. But I just love watching different decorations of people's rooms. But yeah, you're going to be in your room in between classes, or maybe you're going to eat and then come back to your room. So definitely make it a place that's, or, you know, when you're decorating with your student, have them make it a place that's comfortable for them. You never know how much time. I always study in my room. That's my favorite place to study. So I made sure when I decorated my room that I made it something I was comfortable in. Something else I want to highlight about residential life is that we do offer what we call RAPs, or residential academic programs. Really fancy saying for you share one class with everyone on your floor. So my freshman year, I was in a diversity RAP called Partners in Education for Eisenberg. It was my first time. I'm not from a diverse town, so I got to live with people of all different backgrounds. It was really exciting, getting to know people of just different cultures. We all had economics together. So come 9 a.m., 9:30 in the morning, all 30 of us would walk to economics together. It was nice because I had someone I could sit next to on the first day, 30 different people I knew I could sit next to. As well, come finals time, I had 30 people to study with. So it was really fun. All of us would go down to the lounge and like practice studying economics. I would not have passed that class without them. So thank you to all 30 of them. But yeah, you just kind of get to bond in the residential and academic space, putting them both together. And it's a really popular program or programs that people join. There's one for bio, there's one for engineering. Some of them are academic based, some of them are interest based. I believe if you check out one of the websites or the links, you could actually see the full list. And they do fill up pretty quick just because they're kind of popular. So if you're just browsing now, take a peek, keep one on your radar. And then when the time comes, definitely click on it. And then really quickly, I just want to touch upon RAs and PMs. So like I said, I'm an RA or a resident assistant, shared a little bit about what I do and just really making sure that each resident has kind of a big brother, a big sister, and has like a home in that community. And then a peer mentor is something I cannot be, someone who's very, very smart, and just kind of a smarter big brother, a big sister. I just chose to be not the smart one, but they're just really good about the academic side and helping, like if you need study tips or if you're trying to make your schedule, things like that. And what's nice about RAs and PMs is you don't have to like go to a specific spot on campus. They live right in the residential hall with you. So I live right next to my residents. Peer mentors live right next to your residents. And peer mentors are a first year thing. So you kind of have that extra support for your student or your child during that first year. So that's kind of overview of residential life and living at UMass, but I will pass it off to James to get us into classes.
Great, thanks, Bree. So what's really awesome about a large school like UMass is that we have a huge course catalog. So classes are running literally all day. So you can really kind of personalize that, whether you're more of a morning person, like to get those classes done early. Maybe you're not a morning person like me, and you'd rather sleep in and kind of get to those classes a little later in the afternoon. So what is nice about having that kind of freedom is that you can really tailor the schedule to how you like it. Maybe you like a lot of breaks, maybe you like to cram in all your classes at once. Totally depends on you, and especially in some of those larger first year classes that you'll be taking, they have multiple sections that are running at different days and different times throughout the week. So again, you can really customize that kind of class schedule. So, but in our day in the life, let's pretend that your student is a bit of a morning person. So like Bree just mentioned, they got up in their dorm, they head over to classes. Maybe they have 2 classes that morning, get them nice and out of the way quickly. Again, like I was mentioning with those first year classes, some of them tend to be a little larger, especially if they are kind of those intro gen ed classes. Those could be lectures of upwards of 200 people. But again, we have a lot of ways to kind of shrink those down. We have office hours, we have teaching assistants, there's discussion sections and lab sections, which are much, much smaller, usually capped at about 20 students. So even though you might be in some of those larger lectures, the kind of individualized learning is certainly not lost at all. Those, again, in your students, so maybe they're in those larger classes, some of those smaller breakout sessions, but all of them really emphasize a lot of hands-on learning. There's lots of research opportunities, experiential learning. I know personally, I've had a few classes with field trips, which is a lot of fun to be a college student and be getting in a UMass geology van and going on a field trip to a local park. I had a lot of fun in those kind of classes. So hopefully your children will too. And then again, that kind of ties into those research opportunities outside the classroom as well. Professors are a great way to talk to them, kind of get involved in that. You can see some of that happening on the pictures in those slides, whether that research experience is directly tied to a lab section in a classroom or something that you kind of pursue on your own outside of the classroom. Your student can really find all of that here at UMass. But getting back to our kind of day in the life, so your student has woken up, eaten breakfast, gone to class, maybe they had their chemistry lab that morning. They've been working hard, mixing chemicals, making them change color, and they have worked up quite an appetite, which is great because Emily is going to talk to you a little bit about dining now.
My favorite subject. So now we're going to head to lunch in one of our retail dining locations. This is called Blue Wall. So Blue Wall is actually located in our campus center, which is a building on campus that about 80% of the students will pass through on any given day. I know I walk through this building at least 4 times a day, not even including to eat, just because sometimes it's a nice shortcut when I'm running late for class or something. But we've actually been #1 dining for 5 years in a row. I'll say that again so you can really register with it. #1 dining 5 years in a row. And it's true, we can all attest to it. The food is absolutely incredible. I knew when I was choosing schools, I wanted to go to a school where I could eat good food and I would always want to keep eating, and it's awesome. So don't worry, every student is going to be able to find something to eat here at UMass, just because we are so accommodating to all dietary restrictions, dietary needs. I have a friend who has celiacs, and the gluten-free station is delicious. I sometimes find myself eating there just because it's so good. But we accommodate for kosher, halal, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, just all those different options so that we know every student is going to be able to find something to eat here at UMass. So we have 4 dining halls that are here on campus. We have the brand new Worcester dining hall, which is really, really good. If you go there, I definitely recommend getting stir fry. It's really yummy. We also have 2 food trucks that kind of roam around campus. It's really like a treat when you find them. And freshman year, most students are going to be given the unlimited meal plan, which is a great option to see how often you're going to be able to visit all the dining halls. Sometimes I just go in to grab an apple or a banana and kind of just leave. So that unlimited meal plan is really awesome when you're living on campus. Some of the traditions that we have here at UMass Dining Hall, on Halloween, we get steak and lobster. I'm going to be honest, don't ask me why. I can't give you the answer on why that happens. It just sort of happens. When the Patriots won the Super Bowl, we had tons of awesome food. We have Chinese New Year celebrations. We just had a Valentine's Day celebration where all the dining halls had like chocolate covered strawberries and like ice cream bars, and it was just amazing. And I love when the dining halls kind of decorate for all these amazing holidays. It's just kind of makes it so much more fun, kind of reminds me that it's just kind of more homey when they do that for us, and I absolutely love it. So we are #1 dining, did I say that? And it just kind of overall encompasses the food quality, how many different options that we have, and the ability that you're able to kind of create your own dining experience. You can see some of our tour guides on the screen. Don't they look so happy? They look so happy eating all the food. You can see in one of the pictures that is the steak and lobster celebration on Halloween. So I can speak for hours about our dining. So let me know if you guys have any questions about it. But now that your student is full and hungry and ready to take on the rest of their day, they're probably going to get some studying in. I'm going to pass it to Bree so she can tell you the best spots on campus.
It's kind of hard now because I'm hungry, but yeah, we're going to get into the studying. Very important part of college and being at college is studying. So this may be, just reviewing classwork, or maybe you have a final coming up. I know when I have a final coming up, it's study time, it's grind time, it's the way to go. So I'm just going to talk about studying and maybe some of the spots that students like to study at. I'm just gonna talk about the library first, since that's kind of the norm of where you would think to go to study. So we have our W.E.B. Du Bois's library. It's about 28 floors, super tall, red brick building, tallest academic library in the entire world. Without those adjectives, that statement's false. I heard a rumor that if a building outbeats us, we'll just add another adjective. I kind of think it's true. I don't even think it's a rumor. I feel like they would. But yeah, you have your learning commons there. So kind of like in the bottom of the library, it's a little bit more, it's not like it's really silent, there's kind of moving around, maybe a little music playing in the background, and you can study there. It's kind of like couches, lounges. Or we have our quiet floors in the library where you can hear a pin drop. I was studying there before the break for an exam, and I dropped my pencil, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was freaking out. But it just depends on what kind of study habits or study environment you need, and you'll learn very quickly at UMass what type of environment you need. And what's nice is there's so many different options. So if you're like me, I personally don't like being in the library. I like a different space, and this is one of my favorite spaces that's being shown right now, South College. It's so beautiful. Sometimes I sit at the high table, sometimes I sit at the couch, but it's nice and quiet in here. The view is just gorgeous. The lighting is amazing. I don't know why you need good lighting to study, but I need good lighting to study. But just a really nice place. And usually wherever you're studying, there'll be like a cafe or something. So maybe if you need a coffee or a bite to eat while you're studying, UMass is really good about just having those spaces scattered around campus. We have back to the library, we have our writing center there. So if you're like me and just maybe want someone to read your paper, or maybe need help formulating ideas, they're really good about that. We have our tutoring center there. I'm like a product of the tutoring center. I'm very not good at math. But I went there for a couple months and ended up bringing my grade up like 2 whole letters. So I always recommend going to the tutoring center. It's just a really good place again to just kind of expand your knowledge. But some other favorite study spaces: Old Chapel, very beautiful. Being a marketing student, I love going to the Eisenberg Innovation Hub. They have a great cafe there. See, I'm talking about food again. I should be talking about studying, but that's a really good place there. Very like modern and techy, like there's a printer there, but also again, the views is great. We always work on projects there, me and my classmates. We did our whole marketing for the football team. I did a whole project in the Eisenberg Hub. So just a great place that's maybe like, if you're like me, you don't like too silent, but like to see people walking around, and maybe if there's a professor up, you might be walking by and asking questions, things like that. But also a lot of outdoor spaces that you could study. Almost every academic building has a place that you can study. I love being in New Africa House, which is home to our Afro-AM studies department. Just the lobby and being in that environment. There's a whole gallery there. So sometimes if I need a break from studying, I'll get up and go to the gallery. So that's just my personal favorite. But what's nice about UMass is you have the option to explore. You'll probably never explore all of them because there's so many, but you have the option to kind of find which one works best for you. So enough about studying. I'll pass it off to James to talk about stepping outside of the classroom.
Great, thank you so much, Bree. So outside of the classroom, there really is a ton to do. This is kind of my favorite part of UMass as well. I think the opportunities to kind of have fun and develop as a person really are one of the biggest perks of a large school like UMass. For example, your student, if there's someone who's passionate about kind of being active, working out, I know a lot of people like to do that to just blow off some steam. A great place to go could be the rec center right on campus, which actually we're looking at now. So this rec center is massive. They have floors and floors of weight equipment. They have tons of cardio equipment, which we're just looking at now. We're standing on the indoor track. So there is a full-size indoor track there. There's 3 full-size basketball courts. I know you can also play badminton. You can play some volleyball on those courts as well. So tons of activities. And another thing I like to really point out is the opportunity for some group fitness classes. So maybe you're someone who doesn't, your student might be someone who doesn't love to kind of work out on their own, but there's all sorts of great peer-led fitness classes. So one of my friends really likes to go to one, which is all about kettlebells. He just kind of swings kettlebells around, and that's actually taught by another student at UMass, which is pretty cool. I know spin classes are really popular with students, as well as yoga and things like that. So your student could definitely take full advantage of all of that and have really a great kind of gym and fitness program available to them just for coming to the school. It's a very centrally located rec center as well, which is really great. But kind of some other things you can do outside of the rec center, of course, is we have a ton of clubs. Personally, that's my favorite part of UMass. We have over 330 registered student organizations. So I would highly encourage your student to get involved with at least a few of those. That's definitely a huge part of a lot of students' daily lives. Is maybe a club meeting, a club activity. A lot of the clubs go on trips places. So for example, Ski and Board Club, which is all about skiing and snowboarding. They actually do a lot of trips in the winter to kind of some local mountains. They might even go as far as like New Hampshire, Vermont, and kind of organize those really big trips. We don't have clubs that are just kind of for fun. There's a lot of clubs that are also religious oriented, cultural oriented, identity oriented. There's a lot of professional clubs as well. So your student, if they're a business student, might want to get involved in the Women in Business Club, which is a huge one over in Eisenberg. So that's kind of a professional networking club. They hold career events. They have guest speakers. So really popular for women in that Eisenberg School of Business. We also do have some Greek life here on campus. It's about 8 to 10% of our students. So the way I like to always kind of point that out is if you're interested in Greek life, then great, 8 to 10% of 27,000 students. That's a pretty big number. But if you're not really interested in it, don't worry about it. It's only 8 to 10%. I know some schools, their social life is definitely dominated by kind of that Greek scene. That's certainly not the case here at UMass. I've never really been involved with it, and I can't say that I miss it one way or another. So that's kind of best of both worlds is the way I like to think of it. We also have a lot of opportunities for kind of internships and job development. So sort of moving away from the more just for fun things, your students can definitely get that professional kind of edge by coming to UMass. So I know I mentioned a little earlier that I work in a lab here on campus. Then I was actually able to take that school year lab experience and shift it over to a summer internship. So I was living my dream. I was working on a boat. I was throwing fishing nets in the water. I was catching fish. I was counting them, measuring them, identifying them. It was awesome. And that's the kind of work I want to get into. I definitely want to work that kind of fisheries conservation kind of thing. So that was an awesome real world experience that I was able to get as an internship, and definitely will help me as I'm kind of in the job search process right now for what I'm going to do after college. But don't worry, if you're not interested in fish, we have a lot of internships that aren't just for that as well. You know, every single college and major here at UMass is going to have a really awesome career development program that your student can fully take advantage of to kind of set themselves up for whatever they are interested after college. So that's a little bit about our outside the classroom opportunities, but now we're going to pivot kind of to some of the resources and things that you could find, that your student could find on campus.
Yeah, so there's tons of campus resources that we have here on campus. Right now, we'll be showing you the library. So the library is kind of our pride and joy of campus, just because it has so much available for your student and us as current students. So within our library, we have a tutoring center that's free for all UMass students. All you have to do is kind of go up there, tell them what class you need a tutor in, and they will find you a tutor for that class. And what's great is that the tutors are actually UMass students, kind of who get paid to tutor your student. So it's a win-win situation. Same goes for our writing center. So in the basement of our library, we have a writing center where you can take any piece of writing, whether it be a research paper or whether it's just for your own personal writing development. You can kind of take it there, and trained UMass students who get paid to kind of help you are gonna look over your paper, kind of give you some tips, and honestly help your students develop as better writers. So that's a really awesome resource that tons of students here at UMass take advantage of. So now I'm going to kind of go over some of the resource and outreach programs that we have here for your UMass students. I want to emphasize, though, that these are only some of our many resources that we do have here. So if you would like to learn more about them, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a link in the chat eventually. So one of the resources that we have is our CMAS, so Center for Multicultural Advancement and Student Success. They oversee 4 different cultural centers here on campus. They are for first-gen, multiracial, low-income, or POC students. They offer lots of academic support, cultural enrichment, success coaching, and so much more. It's kind of just an intercultural dialogue program, and it prepares students for leadership in a diverse world. We also have the Stonewall Center, which I mentioned earlier. It's one of the first establishments in the nation, specifically for the LGBTQIA+ population here on campus. Again, we're ranked one of the best universities in the country on the Pride Index, and they offer weekly ally training, the newsletters, numerous resources, annual events. I told you the Stonewall Center is right next to my own dorm building. In the fall, I could just smell like a barbecue going on, and me and my friends had to go check it out. So I actually got to learn all about the Stonewall Center myself and all the things that they offer. So I definitely recommend checking out the Stonewall Center, but just because it's a free space for community and allies both. We also have lots of religious services here on and off campus. So we have our Newman Catholic Center. So it's a cafeteria as well as a Catholic chapel, study lounge, and a theology library. So kind of a jack of all trades. And then we have our Hillel House, which is a Jewish temple, and it also offers housing to students. And then again, in the nearby area, we have a Methodist, a Baptist, Lutheran, Unitarian, Mormon, Islam, and so much more. There's even a space that allows any sort of religious affiliation to worship or pray or do anything in that space. Then we also have a Center for Women in Community and a Center for Men and Masculinity. And despite the names, they help and support people of all genders. So the Center for Women in Community, it was created in 1972 as a safe space for people of all identities. They do sexual assault counseling, 24-hour hotline, 24/7 hotline, and a leadership network. And then our Center for Men and Masculinity provides open space to talk and reflect on predominant issues. We also have disability services here on campus, which provides support for students with any and all types of disabilities. So again, these are not just all of our resources, these are just some. So please, I recommend checking out all of them for things that your students can take advantage of while they're here on campus. Now you've learned a little bit about our resources on campus. I'm going to pass it off to Bree so she can kind of get you guys off campus and see what's in the surrounding areas.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about just things to do on campus and resources off campus. But if you're like me and you just want to see what else is out there, it's time to just get off campus and see what's there. So starting off with the nearby area of just the town of Amherst, there's lots of things to do. Going back to food real quick, there's lots of good food places off campus, like Bruegger's Bagels. There's like a really good breakfast spot. And then we kind of have like Bistro or the Bistro, Antonio's. I know Emily mentioned that earlier. And then on Route 9 a little bit, we have 110 Grill, Five Guys, all things like that. We are number one dining, but I would say like the nearby food is also very good. So I definitely with my friends love to go off campus. It's just a beautiful place. I think someone had said it earlier, we're one of the top 10 college towns. So it definitely has that vibe of your students not just going to be in the Amherst community, they'll be in a college community. So I've definitely met people from Amherst College or Hampshire College or the other nearby colleges. So your student will be immersed in a whole town just filled with different activities and events to do. I know there's like a carnival that goes on usually at the beginning of the year in this downtown Amherst area, where they just have different rides and different like activities to do. Hiking's really big. We are in Western Mass, although Amherst is its own little city, it still has the hills and the mountains. So I know tour guides, actually, we do an event where it's like a sunrise hiking. I never get up early enough to go, but I love seeing the pictures that everyone shares after. So a lot of different hiking trails you can do in the nearby area. And then Route 9 and kind of like the Hadley area, I just like to say that's where you go if you forget something that your student forgets something that they're packing, or you forget to sneak those extra like items that they need into their bag. They can always come to Route 9 and pick it up there. That's like where your Target is, your Walmart is, your TJ Maxx, your Whole Foods, your Trader Joe's. We also kind of have like the Hampshire Mall, which has like mall little shops in there as well. So if you're wondering, well, how is my student going to get to all these places? Well, one, they can bring a car if they're interested. You can have a car on campus all 4 or however many years you're here on campus. You simply pay for a parking permit. We also have the campus shuttle, what we call our PVTA, short for our Pioneer Valley Transit Authority. It will take you not only to, your academic buildings or the dining halls all on campus, it will take you to the Amherst Center. And we'll also take you to Route 9, Northampton. I think the furthest it goes east is like Worcester, and the furthest south is like Springfield. And then we also have the Peter Pan bus. My freshman year, I didn't have a car. I'm from like south of Boston, so I would always take the Peter Pan bus to Boston and then hop on there. So if your student's out of state, or if they're just traveling far, they could also go to the Peter Pan bus. Nice about that is they don't have to like travel to a stop. The Peter Pan bus has a stop right here on campus, so your student would be able to hop on right in the stop in the center of campus. So that's a little about getting off campus. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to send them in. But I will pass it off to James to get us into evening activities.
Great, thanks, Bree. So in our day in the life, we're in the evening now. So your student has almost made it through a full and exciting packed day at the University of Massachusetts. And now we're going to kind of talk about, some of those things that you can do in the evening to kind of cap your day off, some of the fun things that you can do. So I always like to say, if you're bored at UMass, you're just kind of not looking hard enough, because there is so much happening all the time. We have tons of sport games that are a lot of fun to go to. So you can see our hockey team up in the top left. They actually just won their conference. So that's pretty exciting. They're moving on to the national tournament now. We won it a couple years ago, so hopefully we can do it again soon. Really excited for that. And those games are electric, so fun to go to. The student body is so excited. The line like to get in is like buzzing with energy. Super fun to go to those hockey games, just because we actually are really good at hockey. So definitely a good activity right there. We also, in that same kind of event space where the hockey team plays, we also have a lot of guest speakers. We usually do a big concert in the spring. And since we are such a big school, we can actually attract some pretty big names to come and play that concert. We've had comedians in the past. We've had some pretty big speakers. So those sorts of things. Another awesome place you can go, actually perfect timing, I was just going to say, is the Brommery Center for the Arts. So kind of our main auditorium on campus. So a couple of my roommates actually are taking a theater class this semester. They aren't theater majors or anything, but they're kind of finding their passion for this acting and are going to put on a little performance that kind of goes along with that class. So another thing you could do in the evening is go see those performances. I'm really excited to go to theirs and kind of see what they've been up to. Your student could also go and see kind of one of the more large scale kind of performances, the shows that are put on by the theater department. We have tons of people interested in that. We have a really big music program as well. So there's always symphonies happening, and whether it's small, big, all sorts of sizes. I know our jazz quartet is pretty cool. I had a friend who took a class on jazz actually, and part of the class was going to some of those performances, and she actually really ended up enjoying it. So maybe your student could kind of find a new passion for that as well through some of those events that are happening in the Fine Arts Center. That's a little bit about kind of the bigger events the school puts on. There's always something happening. There's usually a newsletter that goes out on Thursdays that kind of outlines the events for the weekend, especially kind of those evening events that you might find, but they really are happening all week long. And your student could definitely find something they're interested in. And the best part is they're almost always free for students. There's a few exceptions, but even when there are, they're very cheap tickets. So this is a great time to take advantage of kind of going to those shows and seeing some of that evening entertainment while you're a student at UMass, because you won't be able to do it this cheap again. And that, I think, takes us through kind of the day in the life of a typical UMass student. So now we're going to move over to a little question and answer portion. I know we've had tons of questions coming in, so I'm going to let the question and answer people kind of facilitate that.
Great. Thank you so much, James. And thank you also to Emily and Bree for walking us through a day in the life of a UMass Amherst student. It's great to hear all of your different perspectives and experiences. So again, thank you. And as James said, a lot of great questions coming into the chat. As I mentioned earlier, we will not be able to get to all of them today, but I am going to share some contact information for you at the end of the presentation, so that if we don't answer your question directly in the chat or live right now, you could send it to us again in another format and we'll be able to get you those answers that you're looking for. I also wanted to reiterate for anyone who might have missed this at the beginning that yes, this presentation is being recorded and it will be shared on our website sometime in the coming week. So you can keep an eye out for that if you'd like to re-watch this or share it with anybody. I know there were some questions that had come in about the links and perhaps that they weren't able for everyone to be copied and pasted. So apologies for that. If you do click on the link directly, it should hopefully open a window that you can come back to after the presentation. But again, if you have questions and want to find more information on something, just stay in touch with us and we'll make sure that you're able to get that. And I will mention too, just before we jump into the Q&A, that there are other opportunities to continue to learn about UMass and why this might be a great option for your family. And we do have 2 more destination days for admitted students coming up on March 27th and April 2nd, as well as some admitted student visits during the Massachusetts public school break, so the 3rd week in April, and our regular campus tours and information sessions. So those are events that your student would register for, and they're available either via email or on our website. So again, lots of opportunities to keep learning about UMass. So with that, let's jump into some Q&A. James, I'd like to bring you back on for this first question. Could you talk a little bit more about research on opportunities on campus, both maybe your own, and then just in generally speaking, like how would a student get involved in research, for example?
That's a great question. So my own personal research, it's through the Department of Environmental Conservation. So that's kind of like a collection of majors. It has environmental science, natural resource conservation. They work a lot with biology as well. So I'm very much doing kind of like that hands-on classic science research you might think of. I have some friends who are biochemistry majors, and again, they're doing that very kind of classic. They wear lab coats, they pipette things, mix chemicals together, shake things around. The very hands-on science research you kind of might think of. But what's really cool about research at UMass is that virtually every department is doing it. So political science is a lot of kind of human dimension research. There's research happening in business school, psychology research, even the languages have kind of language labs. I know the linguistics department does a lot of that as well. So really, no matter what you're involved in, there are opportunities to kind of be on that front edge of research and kind of pushing the knowledge in that field. Getting involved with it is actually easier than you'd think. Really, all it takes is just talking to a professor. So all of our professors here, most of them, are also running labs and kind of doing that research themselves. And then they're teaching as well. So that means that if you have a professor who is doing something interesting and you want to know more about it, go to their office hours, ask them about kind of opportunities in that lab. Maybe they don't have anything formal, but they can at least show they can take your student on a little tour, show them more about it. Some departments have a very specialized application website as well. So I know biology has a really streamlined process where you can kind of input different things about what you're looking for. They will send a bunch of matches, and then you can sort of do a blanket application to a lot of those labs. The Office of Undergraduate Research is also a great resource to use. Similar to that biology one, it's a little more for the whole university though, where they can kind of help streamline the process and help connect your student to different opportunities for that research, regardless of their major.
Okay, thank you, James. Bree, a question for you. How are internships or co-ops available for undergraduate majors? Can you talk a little bit more about those options?
Yes, of course. One of my favorite things. I just want to preface it also that internships are a timing thing. I think my freshman year, I was really like, I have to get an internship my first week on campus. Like, it's a timing thing. But yeah, those opportunities are always there. I know I believe every school or college has an email list, and for me, it's every Tuesday for the sports department. I'll get a list of 30 internships I can apply to, and that number just keeps growing every week. So I click through all 30 of them. I see if there's one that I like, and sometimes it's as easy as clicking applying, and that's the opportunity. We also have like different career centers in different schools or colleges. So I know in Eisenberg, we have the Chase Career Center. They're a good place to go if you're like, hey, I'm looking for opportunities, looking for internships or co-ops. That might be for the fall or for the spring, maybe for the summer, because if that's timing that works for you, they're a good place to go. But also kind of talking about what James said, sometimes it's as easy as reaching out to professor. The way that I found my Excel internship was I looked through that list of 30 internships. I found one I liked, and my professor actually knew someone who was currently working there. Our alumni network is really big. If you remember anything, just know that UMass's alumni network, when it comes to internships, is very elite. It was one of my favorite things about UMass. But she had known someone there. I got to speak with someone who was currently working there and who told me about the internship and ended up putting in a good word for me. And that's kind of how I found mine. We also have Handshake, which is kind of like a version of LinkedIn for UMass, but Handshake specifically is looking for UMass students. So your student already kind of checks the box of just being a UMass student. And there's just a list of opportunities. You can throw a bunch of filters on them as well. But yeah, the opportunities are endless for internships and co-ops.
Thank you, Bree. James, I want to go back to you for this next question. How would an average day in the life potentially vary for a student in the honors college? And can you talk also about how a student might go about becoming part of the Commonwealth Honors College if they aren't directly admitted into it upon being accepted to the university?
For sure. So the truth is the daily life of an honors student really isn't going to look that different from the daily life of any other student at the university. So the big difference is the honors college comes with a few different requirements, a few extra requirements as well. So for example, everybody needs to take some sort of general education requirement that will cover history. But in the honors college, you have the opportunity to take a honors version of that history class. So maybe you're taking the same kind of general intro class, but it's going to be a smaller class. There's only 20 to 25 students, and it's a little more discussion based, but it'll still satisfy that same requirement. And you certainly don't have to take an honors version of all of your classes like that. It's just a select few. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I really think it only comes out to be 6 or 7 throughout your entire 4 years here. And then you also have the opportunity to do the thesis. That's kind of what I think is my favorite part of the honors college, because the thesis really is an opportunity to get the resources and the time and sort of the space that you need to pursue a gigantic capstone project of any of your choosing. So I'm doing mine in research, but I know people who have choreographed dances, composed some piece of music, done some sort of study or kind of proposal for a business. So I have a friend who did it for Yankee Candle, actually. So it can be anything you can imagine. You just sort of get the time and space to pursue that project. And then in terms of enrollment to the Honors College, every single application is automatically considered for enrollment to the Honors College when you first apply to the university. But if you don't get in right off that, the majority of people actually don't who are in the Honors College. Instead, you can do an internal transfer. So after a semester or two here at the university, so long as you keep your grades high, and there's a short little questionnaire, kind of some of the questions about why you want to be in the Honors College. So you fill that out. It's just a mini application that you send over to the Honors College. And that's actually how most of the honors students end up being in the Honors College, is from an internal transfer. There also is the Honors College housing. So that is another kind of change of what your daily life might look like if you're in the Honors College. You could choose to live in the Honors College housing, which is a little more centrally located, but a little farther from some of the dining halls. So pros and cons there.
Great, thank you so much. Emily, could you talk a little bit more about different kinds of clubs and how students would get, like, how would they join one? How do they find out about it? Then what happens from there?
Yeah, definitely. So because we have so many clubs, it's really easy to access all of them through our activities exposition that happens at the beginning of each semester. So you kind of walk in and there's all these clubs tabling, and they're kind of calling you out and giving you flyers and telling you to sign up. You're going to probably sign up for 30 clubs once you leave that activities exposition, but you're only going to really commit to maybe 2 or 3 because those are the ones you fall in love with and those are the ones you kind of want to spend all of your time doing. But if there's one thing I always recommend to students is that you always join a club, because it's the easiest way to make friends. Because if you think about it, it's kind of like a life hack, just because they are students who have the same exact interest as your student. So it just kind of makes sense that they would all kind of connect and have similar interests, and it's just kind of awesome. So we also have our Campus Pulse website. So if you're not able to make the activities exposition, all of the clubs are listed on our Campus Pulse website with contact information for club presidents and vice presidents and people who you can reach out to, students can reach out to kind of get in touch with those clubs and find out when meetings are and kind of what you need to do to join them.
Great, thank you so much, Emily. Another question for you, Bree, especially with your RA hat on. Can you talk a little bit about, like, just choosing housing? So we have a couple questions here about, can a student live on campus all 4 years? What kind of housing options do they have? And, like, how much choice do students have? So if you could just touch on that in general, that would be great.
Yeah, let me put the hat on. Yeah, as a first year, there's 5 different residential areas that you can live in. We have Orchard Hill, Northeast, Honors College, Southwest, and Central. They all kind of have their own vibe. Like Southwest is definitely like the Manhattan vibe. Orchard Hill is our smallest and quietest residential area. Northeast and Central kind of fall like a quads type feel. Central, you can live like at the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill. So each one has like its own little like quirky parts to it. And if you've been on a tour, you've kind of probably heard the spiel about that. But you pretty much rank your top 3, usually majority students. So if I know, like, I do not want to live on the hill, I will not even put that in my top 3. I would put like Southwest, Northeast, and Central. Most students get their first picked. If not, they get their second pick. I've personally never really heard of anyone getting their third pick. It's usually the first or second. And then you are guaranteed housing your first year on campus. After that, it usually drops off about 25% each year. So 100% of first years required to live on campus, it goes to 75% sophomores, 50% juniors, 25% seniors. With that being said, I've also never heard of an upperclassman wanting to live on campus and not being able to. I being a junior and I'm gonna live on campus next year as a senior. So it's truthfully up to you. But also, like, RAPs kind of go into that as well. The residential academic programs we're talking about, those are kind of specific to areas as well. Like mine was in Southwest. I know there's like a bio one in Southwest as well. So that's just kind of, I hope I touched everything for now. I know we're coming short on time, but that's like a little spiel of res life.
That was perfect. Thank you very much, Bree. And I also am going to talk about next steps, but I just want everyone in the audience to know that you're not behind on housing. Housing preference application hasn't opened yet. So everyone's in the same boat with that. James, could you talk a little bit more about the 5 College Consortium and what opportunities that provides for UMass students?
Yes, definitely. So another perk of UMass and kind of the area that we're in is we're a member of the 5 College Consortium. So that means UMass and then 4 other colleges in the area kind of share a lot of resources. So those are Amherst College, Hampshire, Smith, and Holyoke. So they all together, we're able to share a lot of resources. So those other four, though, are a lot smaller liberal arts colleges. So it's kind of fun. I'm actually taking a class at Hampshire this semester. So it's a rock climbing class. It is something that UMass doesn't offer, which is kind of rare. We usually have the biggest course catalog, but sometimes you find some niche classes that aren't offered at UMass. So that's what I did. I found rock climbing at Hampshire. So once a week, I drive over to Hampshire. It's a very different experience. The class is a lot smaller. Not that you can't find those small classes at UMass, but still kind of that liberal arts feels very different. So I really enjoy doing that. They also, the 5 College Consortium also has some certificate programs. So these are kind of like minors, but they're open to everyone in those 5 everyone in those 5 colleges. So I'm doing mine in marine science and coastal science. So that is not through UMass, it's actually through the 5 College Consortium. And again, it just means that I can use classes from any of those 5 colleges, and I can use kind of research experience from any of those colleges and apply it towards that certificate. It's open for any students there. And yeah, that's a great way to kind of switch it up. It's like the miniest study abroad you can do. You can actually go to a different college and kind of get that different college feel without actually leaving the Amherst area. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. I wish I had thought about using the 5 College Consortium a little before my senior year because I'm enjoying my Hampshire class so much.
Great. Thank you so much, James. And we have one last question before we wrap it up with, again, a little bit about next steps and how to keep in touch. We may go a few minutes over 4:30 to our panelists and guests. Thank you for your patience with that. We wanted to make sure that we had a good amount of time to spend on Q&A. So for the last question, I'm going to open this one up to Emily. And can you tell us about why you chose UMass?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually chose UMass because I came in actually as a business major. So I chose it because our Eisenberg School of Management here is absolutely amazing. However, over the summer, before I even got to college, I saw economics on my schedule and it really freaked me out because I did not want to take economics at all. So I talked to my advisor, I changed my major to education, which is the path I want to be on right now. But like I chose UMass because it gave me all of that flexibility to change my major without kind of any hassle. I was able to add a double major, add a certificate. So I chose UMass for its flexibility and its ability to kind of customize my educational experience through obviously all of the work with my advisors, all of my majors, but as well as all of the clubs I'm able to incorporate kind of that have to do with my major and just all the opportunities that UMass gave me. And I'm sorry, my dog's barking. But yeah, I chose UMass just because I was able to kind of customize everything to what I want.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And your dog is always a welcome guest on a Zoom. That's Zoom life for you. So it's all good. All right. So once again, thank you to Emily, James, and Bree for presenting us the day in the life and answering questions. I also do want to thank Emily C. and MP behind the scenes. I know y'all have been working hard on dropping links and answering questions. So we very much appreciate everybody's participation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now to go over a few more slides as we wrap up. So also want to thank our audience for joining us today. Very much appreciate your time and energy and attention and your thoughtful questions. We're hoping that your student will choose to join the UMass Amherst community. And on that note, here are a few steps to keep in mind. As you can see, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, the priority deadline has passed earlier this month on the 1st. But if you didn't fill out the FAFSA and your student has a US Social Security number and is interested in federal financial aid from the government, please do reach out to our financial aid office to talk about your options there. We do have our enrollment deposit deadline coming up before we know it on May 1st, which is the national decision deadline. So in a previous session I was doing today, a couple of parents had shared how their student waited until April 30th to decide, and that's totally fine, but just remember to decide by May 1st and put down that enrollment deposit if UMass is the place for your family. Your student will be getting information in their email about signing up for new student orientation and transition programming, as well as submitting their housing preferences. Again, that application for housing preferences has not opened, so nobody is behind the 8 ball there. And then after high school wraps up, which again, unbelievably will be here before we know it for these students, they will need to submit their final official transcript through their high school to our registrar's office by July 1. But again, honestly, the most important things to be aware of are the upcoming deadline on May 1st and just having your student check their email, because all of these reminders will be constantly sent out by email to keep everybody on track. And then finally, I want to just share some opportunities to stay connected with our office. We have here on the left-hand side some of our social media handles. We do have a Facebook page as well as a Facebook group for admitted students. So if your student is interested in joining that and they haven't already, that's a great way to ask questions, get to know their peers, maybe even find a future roommate. And that's under official UMass class of 2026. We also have Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And on the right-hand side, you can see some helpful email addresses. So again, especially if you had a question that wasn't answered directly today, please reach out to us at mail@admissions.umass.edu if it's an admissions or enrollment question, or to tours@umass.edu if it's a question for our current students like Emily, James, and Bree. Our students love to answer your questions and connect with families, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be happy to keep in touch with you and again, get you that information that you're looking for as you think about this important decision and the next step for your student. So once again, thank you very much for your time and energy. Thank you to our panelists and the folks behind the scenes. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day and go UMass.